Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word. Energy security is one of the most pressing issues for many developing countries like Nigeria. And if there's going to be any meaningful progress, addressing our energy issues is non-negotiable.
I need to see light from my house. Make them do something.
Band A is expensive. I literally have to turn off all my appliances just to reduce costs.
We need light.
Introducing the Energy Outlook, your go-to show for everything energy. Every week, we'll bring you the latest insights, innovation, and in-depth analysis of Nigeria's energy sector. From policy discussions to regulatory insights, we will analyze the key decisions influencing growth and sustainability in the energy sector. We'll bring you the human stories behind the headlines, giving you a personal perspective on the broader energy challenges. Join me every Friday at 6 p.m. for the Energy Outlook, your guide to the future of energy, where energy means business. Hello, and welcome to the Energy Outlook. I'm Wisdom Chap Jumbo. Tonight, we'll discuss one of the most pressing issues facing our nation and indeed the continent. The issue of energy access in Africa is a pressing one right now for every single leader. Not just the leaders, but in fact everybody. Because the issue of energy access affects everything, including the economy. 600 million Africans lack access to energy access. How do we solve this problem? What is the solution? Why does it remain unsolved for many years? Where are we lacking behind? Today, we dive into this conversation to discuss some of the efforts that have been made so far this week to address these issues by world leaders. But before we delve into this conversation, I want to just give you some update of what is happening within the energy sector. As we promise you here on the Energy Outlook, we bring you every week updates, news, trends that you need to know happening within the sector. Just to let you know, earlier this week, 27th and 28th of January 2025, Africa heads of states gathered in Tanzania at the Africa Energy Summit to discuss very important topic of finding solution of closing the energy access gap in the country. Over 30 Africa head of states and governments at that summit in Tanzania committed to concrete reforms to solve the energy access issues in the continent. They committed to expanding access to reliable, affordable, and sustainable electricity to power economic growth, improve quality of life, and drive job creation across the continent. They did even more than that, as they all endorsed a declaration that we now know as Dar es Salaam Energy Declaration, to pull 300 million Africans, into energy access, or create energy access for 300 million Africans. And they've called this the Mission 300 Africa. The Mission 300 Africa is driven or powered by the African Development Bank and the World Bank. And at this summit, 30 African leaders came together to sign this declaration, means their commitment to some of the agreements with this declaration. The objective of this, as I said earlier, is to provide electricity access to 300 million Africans by the year 2030. It's a tall one, but can they achieve it? Is why they gathered at Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, for this summit, and it was a rave of the week and the most important news we saw on the airwaves. Aside this, the World Bank and African Development Bank have collectively pledged $48 billion towards this declaration and this commitment to pull 300 million Africans out of energy poverty. Very important, as this commitment also attracted different partners stakeholders to also make further commitment. Nigeria was not left out, as 12 countries also presented their energy compact at this summit. Very important, 12, and we want to see more countries also do the same in coming days. We are indeed very excited to see this commitment by African leaders, and we want to see results come out of this. Very important, results should come out of this. The federal government of Nigeria at this summit presenting its energy compact have, stated a program, or they've come together to present a program that will require $23.2 billion to carry out. And part of this amount will have $15.5 billion that will be provided by private sector players. We want to see how private sector partnership will play out in some of this commitment, especially with Nigeria and this energy compact. For me personally, I'm very happy that Nigeria was at this summit. I'm very happy that Nigeria has gone to make a commitment. And this is the first step we have to make, that commitment that we indeed need to make. I won't fail to also mention that President Tinubu just earlier today, further on his Twitter handle, has posted, just to cement, that commitment he has said. And he said, we are committed to expanding and fast-tracking universal energy access for Nigerians by 2030. So the president is also committed to this, and we want to see that via this commitment, we want to see a lot happen. And this commitment is what is really key to begin. We need the political will. And what has been lacking a lot, to close the energy access gap, especially in Nigeria, is that political will that we indeed need to carry out this. Also, just to let you know that the International Finance Corporation, the IFC, at this summit also signed agreement with 5 distributed renewable energy companies to support the rollout of mini-grids projects across Nigeria. The IFC signed this agreement with a few companies. I'll just mention them. Haven Hill Synergy Limited, Prado Power Limited, Previda Power Limited, Susai Renewable Energies Limited, and Solaris Limited. These 5 companies have signed this agreement with the IFC, and of course, it's at the back of this summit. And we think these are very concrete steps to begin to make. The Rural Electrification Agency will be driving this project, and we can't wait to see more results. Look, renewable energy we have in abundance in Nigeria, and I wonder sometimes, indeed, why we are not leveraging it well enough. And hopefully, through these partnerships and this commitment, we'll see quite a lot of things change. Just to let you know, one more news for you is the Nigeria Clean Energy Initiative for the country is indeed moving a step further. There were a series of conversations at the World Economic Forum, which just recently held, of course, in Davos, Switzerland. And it's this annual gathering where world leaders also go to discuss some of the economic issues. And at this forum, the group CEO of Orlando PLC, Mr. Wale Tinubu, has disclosed at this summit that the oil firm is partnering with the Lagos State government to deploy 5,000 electric buses for public transportation in the state. 5,000. I think Orlando and Lagos State government have been at this partnership for quite a while, and Mr. Wale Tinubu said, while he was speaking at the summit, on the sideline of the summit at Davos, Switzerland, that this decision to invest in electric vehicles, particularly for public transportation, is informed by the company's commitment to adopting cleaner energy solutions as part of its just energy transition drive. So this is indeed very important, as it significantly will reduce carbon emission and enhance urban mobility in one of Africa's busiest cities, Lagos State. Very important. And we must really commend Lagos State government for its drive as regards this issue of mobility and electric buses. As you are aware, in case you've not joined it in Lagos, electric buses are used, for public transportation. And I think this will just put it at scale when it is fully implemented. Rwanda, and if we take a bit out of Nigeria, Rwanda is set to become Africa's newest oil producing nation after fresh discovery, we understand. And the Rwanda government has officially announced its first oil discovery, identifying 13 reservoirs within the Lake Kivu, the natural border between DRC Congo. Very important, and we really must be happy for Rwanda, as this oil discovery marks a significant milestone in the country's effort to diversify its economy beyond traditional sectors like agri and tourism. If you've ever been to Kigali, Rwanda, you will indeed be happy for this news. They are a prosperous country. They are indeed have advanced, especially in their democracy. And this is good progress for them. And we want to, we'll follow this news. And we'll see more as it comes from Rwanda. This is our news roundup, of course, from across the energy sector, of a few things that have been happening within the week that we thought should bring you up to speed. We'll get into our conversation for today. Stay with us, as the conversation promises to be enlightening and transformative for you. I have two guests with me who will be telling us more. They were in Tanzania for the Africa Energy Summit, and they fully participated in the conversations, and they are key players within the off-grid space for quite a while. I know them personally, and I follow their work, and I'm indeed happy to have them on the program today. But stay with us. We'll come back. But while we're away, we'll quickly play for you or show you what happened in Tanzania at the summit, and so you just have a glimpse of what was said and what is this commitment that these leaders have committed themselves to. Ladies and gentlemen, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Here is the commitment. Hereby resolved to undertake the following. 1. Pursue ambitious yet achievable goals for access to electricity and clean cooking solutions. Increase the shares of renewable energy in the energy mix, and increase private capital mobilization, and take control and time-bound actions to A, efficiently rehabilitate and expand power generation, transmission and distribution network infrastructure at competitive costs based on least cost power systems planning principles that consider not only natural resources, but also tap into cost-effective generation options regionally, and through competitive and transparent procurement processes that attract qualified bidders and secure best prices. B, leverage the benefits of increased regional integration by investing in interconnections, harmonizing transmission planning, pricing standards, and grid codes with the power pools, and fostering cooperation among countries to unlock Africa's full energy potential, including gas, as well as hydropower, solar, wind, geothermal, and other clean energy sources. C, embrace distributed renewable energy and clean cooking solutions as critical elements of the energy access agenda by adopting the multi-tier framework for energy access definition, least cost electrification strategies and plans with an emphasis on energy efficiency, as well as national clean cooking strategies with realistic targets. D, incentivize private sector participation to unlock resources by creating an enabling environment through supportive regulations, effective fiscal policies with appropriate incentives and innovative financing mechanisms grounded in cost-benefit analysis. Further, incentivize African investors and support the development of an African electricity industry.
Welcome back. That was the Secretary General of the African Development Bank, Professor Vincent, reading out the declaration that was signed by 30 African leaders in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, for the African Energy Summit. My guest today will dive into the conversations to discuss some of this outcome of the summit and, of course, how that will affect Nigeria and Nigerians. Our topic today is scaling up energy access in Nigeria. We want to really look at it. What are some of the issues? Why are we still struggling? Why are at least half of our population still not having energy access or unreliable energy, even with the abundant sunlight that we have? What is the issue? How can we solve this? My guest is Habiba Ali. She is the CEO of Sincere Renewable Energies Company, a pioneering force in providing clean and renewable energy solutions for underserved communities in Nigeria. And my second guest who will be speaking to us, of course, they are both via Zoom, talking to us today, is Chibueze Ekeh. He's CEO C Solar, a leading player in Nigerian solar energy sector, driving sustainable power solutions for homes, businesses, and industries. I followed these two and their work over the years, and I'm indeed happy to speak to them today. Chibueze, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good evening, Wisdom. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Good to have you. Habiba, are you with us? Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Good evening, Wisdom. Good evening, everyone.
Fantastic. I really must appreciate the both of you for taking time to join us in the conversation today. So I think I will just start quickly with Chibueze first of all. And both of you, like I mentioned before, we're at the summit in Tanzania, but we want to get some insights from you as you were present there. Chibueze, starting from you, what's your take about the summit, and how do you feel for the first time this kind of gathering of African leaders, of course, to take a bold step to close the energy access gap in Africa? And I want you to just narrow your thoughts, of course, down to Nigeria. How do you feel about this, and what are your thoughts?
Okay, thank you very much. Coming back from Tanzania, it's actually been an intense one, because just being there and seeing the sheer number of people from different African countries, from the World Bank, from the African Development Bank, as well as other Mission 300 partners, it's very, very exciting to have been part of the conversation, to have been in the rooms, and to be part of history. One thing I take away, and particularly just like you showed earlier on, the tweet, the comment on X, the post on X by the president, I think most African leaders, based on their body language, it is clear that just by that body language alone, and all coming to the room for the common purpose of saying, how do we, as a continent of about 1.2 billion people, how do we look at addressing the issue that affects half of the population, which is the 600 million people that don't have access to electricity? And what then happens is that these leaders have come to say, you know what, we're going to have an ambitious vision, which is in the next 5 years, by 2030, we need to electrify at least half of this population, which is the 300 million people out of the 600 million people. So I guess that kind of gives a background about why it is called Mission 300 and what everybody is on board for. Now, it is easy to say, the hard part is, implementing. But however, it was also clear that all the African leaders, by signing the energy compacts for their different countries, have basically said, we are on board with this declaration, and we're going to also sign up to the action plans that are tied to the energy compacts. Now, the action plans are some of the things you've already mentioned at a high level, one of which is ensuring that investments flow in transmission and distribution, for example, in Nigeria, to debottleneck energy supply. Another one is trying to make sure that renewable energy becomes a major part of the energy mix in this country. And that is by making renewable energy 50% of the energy mix. So it is clear that there is a huge opportunity to address this huge challenge. It is not going to be easy. It is going to involve the public sector and the private sector. But I would say most importantly, there are a lot of opportunities for the private sector players, whether it is companies that are involved in building mini grids in rural communities, whether it's companies that are involved in providing local currency funding. There are definitely a lot of opportunities, and I'm sure Nigerians are willing and able to tap into them.
Of course, I hope Nigerians are willing and able to tap into them. But I want to come to Habiba now. With Nigeria playing a pivotal role in Mission 300, are you confident that we have the political will, we have with readiness to take on, meeting up these targets for Mission 300, especially when you know our very peculiar issue in Nigeria? You have been in this sector for quite a long time, and you were at the summit. Are you confident?
Well, I would say for once, I think something is going to happen, and I think my confidence just doesn't stem from the opportunity that we're seeing due to the Mission 300 African Energy Summit, but more because of the preceding activities that have been happening in Nigeria prior to this. We have the World Bank Nigerian Electrification Program that was recently completed, and a new follow-on one has also been started. There are other programs in the country like the Nigerian Energy Support Program and all the other programs that have actually been targeted towards the energy sector. And I think this has actually paid off. It has support. It has shown that there is the wherewithal and there is the need. So when Nigeria goes to Zambia during the African Energy Summit and has a compact that they presented and said they want to now rise from getting access to electricity from 4% to 9%, access to clean cooking from 22% to 25% per annum, and to achieve universal access by 2030. I think even if we do not get there, we are already on the right track towards getting there, is my thinking. Nigeria has also committed to increasing the renewable energy share in its generation mix by up to 22%. Sorry, from 22% to 50%. And you can tell that this will be achieved because the first Nigerian electrification project budget was about 350 million. Now that has risen by up to 750 million. Okay. There are other programs in the pipeline. Just today we signed, and I know Chibueze's company too was there. We signed the African Mini Grid program that we're going to scale mini grid solutions across the country. And we're going to be deploying several solar mini grids across the country. I think about 22 of them. So you see, even besides the 750 million that is on the World Bank AFDB program, there are other channels that funding is coming towards the energy sector in Nigeria. And achieving this ambitious target, as much as it is very, very time-bound, I think this is where I also said it is good to have all hands on deck. No one should be left behind. I mean, when I say no one should be left behind, even the people who are being taken out of energy poverty need to actually be inculcated into the planning. Let them understand where we're going. Let them understand what the country is aiming at. And because with the time that is remaining, I mean, it's 2025. We just have 5 years. I know it's possible, but it needs a bit of speed, and I think that is where the only snag will be at.
But Habiba, if I may ask you, you have been in this sector for quite a long time. Did we really need this kind of summit to push us to act? For example, 600 million people lack energy access. Nigeria contributes significantly to that number in Africa. So what has been our problem over the years? And where has been the pain point? It seems like there are many different streams of funding into the sector, especially the off-grid and energy access, but we still have not been able to push for this for quite a while. What has been the challenge in your view up until this point? Because if you cast your mind back, the SDGs, began in 2015. And we've done how many years now, and we're left with 5 years. It seems it's now we want to do a push. How do we achieve this? And what has been a challenge over the years, in your view?
Well, I don't know. For me, it's that there's not just been enough financing, honestly, and it is also that most of the work that has been done, data collecting and understanding what has been done, is also been a bit of a problem. I mean, if you go to the Nigerian ports today and you see the amount of people, containers that are being cleared of solar energy solutions, you will know that a lot is happening, right? It's just that how are we harnessing? People are doing things in a very disjointed manner. So nobody really can tell, because there's no central database where if I'm not working with the REA now and I do something on energy, I do not owe anybody that responsibility to drop that data into any database. So forget all the, REA is doing a fantastic job of working with, say, if you're looking for an REA project now, there's a robust digitalization of the process through the Odyssey platform and another platform. For example, we use the AMP platform. But the problem now is, if it is outside of these programs, then what is happening? Right? But there's a lot. I would say that the ones that are the activities that are on the programs are actually not as, if you marry together with the activities that are not on any program, you will find that they are almost the same. So there's a lot that has been happening, honestly, because what I use as, it might seem simplistic, but what I always use as an example is, I remember in 2010 when I started this business, you could fly over Nigeria and no roof had any solar panel on it. But now, just be landing in any city in Nigeria and pay attention to the roofs. You will see that there are so many solar panels on them. So that shows you that adoption has actually really kicked in. In fact, I was talking to my team recently. I said, you guys have let this business go. Many people have gotten solar. Now, are we going to get people to put solar for? But because it was a joke, but it's just that to show you that there's so much adoption. People are beginning to understand it. People are working towards, what do you mean? What would I say now? Making sure that they key into solar, because as you know, the energy situation in Nigeria is not robust. We have had already this year, we have already had one grid collapse, right? So, and if you remember how many we had towards the end of last year.
12. We had 12 in total.
There is progress. Exactly. There will be progress, but it has to be captured somehow. So data of even the unprogrammed, quote and unquote, in my language, has to be put into place. So I won't say we didn't need the AES summit. I will say it is a summit that was necessary just to make sure that we are aligned and on the same trajectory of winning. Because one of the things that came out to me strongly when I was listening to most of the countries speak is, how do we carry out regional integration of energy so that we can understand, like, how do we transfer energy inter-region? That is a fantastic thing to start thinking about. That is innovation, right? And Africa, we have so much resources that we can gain our access to energy from. It's not just solar. There's wind. There's opportunities for wind.
Okay.
I know Kenya is heavily powered by wind. There's an opportunity for this one that has not even been touched, and we have so much sea in Africa, is the tidal waves one, right?
Yeah.
So there's so much that can be done, and I think I agree with Nigeria saying that they want to expand power generation and investment into the transition and distribution of energy infrastructure at competitive costs. It's very important to be competitive. The costs need to be competitive.
Yeah, Habiba, let me just hold you there a bit and bring Chibueze in. Chibueze, you are a very key player within this space, and of course you have been in many communities to either install mini grids and all. I recall one of your very recent projects with Orlon in the Niger Delta. If you speak to us for a minute about that project. But my question to you is, what role do you see the private sector playing here now? The federal government in its Energy Compact at the summit have mentioned that it's committing 23, is the program they are putting together for the compact is $23 billion, and the private sector will contribute about $15 billion to that. But tell us, is money just a challenge for you as a player who goes into the creeks of the Niger Delta, into the different communities, to install mini grids and bring energy closer to the people in the last mile. What are some of the challenges you see that probably were not addressed in this summit? But tell us briefly about that, your project with Orlon, if you don't mind.
All right, thank you, Wisdom. Last year, we were able to commission a mini grid in Southern Ijaw in Bayelsa State. That mini grid, we tried to make sure that it was one of the most sustainable and innovative mini grids. And from that experience, what we learned was that, financing is not necessarily the biggest problem. It doesn't mean that we don't need financing to close the gap. But what is very important, and I think financing likes, is where there is value created, because money will always flow to where there is, investment opportunity, there is value created. And if that process is managed well and is delivered according to expectation, on time, within scope, and within expected budget, more money can come, and therefore you have opportunity for investment turnaround. And just like Habiba had said, we can actually scale up to meet these targets in the short period. However, what I've realized is that on the continent, for us to be able to meet this goal, it's going to put a lot of burden on not just the foreign players who are also here and who are doing well, but on the local players, because this is a chance for us to get our acts together to ensure that we clean up our house. We have what investors are looking for in terms of the right corporate governance structures, the right standard operating procedures, the right policies, setting up the right team, because these are some of the things that investors look for in order for the money to flow. So from what we already know, there's already some money in the room, and we are trying to use that money to crowd in more funding. However, more funding will only come based on the performance of the money in the room. So if we're able to judiciously utilize the current funding that's available and show the impact and prove that indeed, as Nigerians, we can lead in ensuring that we play a critical role to deliver this electricity infrastructure, which is a core backbone in terms of development. Like we all know, Sustainable Development Goal number 7 says that we should have clean and affordable electricity, because that is one of the key pillars for sustainable development. And as a country where about half of the population is living in darkness, and and another part of them don't really have reliable electricity supply, there is a lot of opportunity to ensure that lights are turned on, that productive systems are turned on, that cold storage systems are turned on to preserve food and reduce food harvest, post-harvest losses, that even people are able to move around more, and we're able to leverage the use of electric vehicles that, for example, can be powered using solar energy or other clean energy sources. We have a very difficult job to do to achieve this in 5 years. But if we get the foundation right, if we ensure that we have the right systems, if we ensure that what investors are looking for, we put them in place, I am confident that even from local investment partners, we can actually unlock funding from the pension funds, from insurance companies. You'll be surprised that some of the money we're looking for are currently in Nigeria here. And this is a long-term electricity business anywhere in the world is a long-term business. You need patient capital. You need capital that can stay 10, 15 years and you can deliver on. And I'm confident that if we all work together, we can achieve that.
Okay, Chibueze, I want to ask you that because the ordinary Nigerian who is listening to this, we have one question in their mind that how does this give me lights at the end of the day? What is in need for Nigerians? So when we say all of these things in a very high level, you were there at the summit. So what's your thinking? What would you say to another Nigerian if you simplify these words for them? What does it mean for them at the end of the day? We know our president was there. We know our energy compact for Nigeria was presented. But all of this, what does it mean? Can we simplify this for the ordinary Nigerian?
Very, very much so. And thank you for that, Wisdom. So I'll use an example, right? If we think of the last Christmas holiday, I think this was one of the few Christmas we've ever not had issue with fuel supply, with the petrol supply in the country. And that is because the market for petrol supply to a large extent has been liberalized, right? So the price of petrol today goes up, goes down tomorrow because of, supply and demand in the market. And however, because there is that price signal, right, people can invest to ensure that petrol supply is available. Now, if we bring that into the, electricity space, for those who are even living, where you have access to grid supply, the challenge has mostly been that we have not really been paying a fair price for, a fair value of supply, because at the end of the day, if you bring it down to what we learned in, elementary school, secondary school, selling price, cost price, right? If you're selling bread and the cost of selling bread is higher than how much you sell the bread for, you would probably be looking at how to get out of that business. However, if there is an incentive for you to incur the cost to sell bread and then you can sell it for a higher price, you will most likely be thinking of how to sell more bread. It is simply the same thing with electricity. And one of the outcomes from the compact is to ensure that we have cost-reflective tariff, which basically is an important signal to investors to say, look, if you can actually come in here, put your money in and get your money out and ensure that people can actually get the power supply like we're all craving for,
Yes.
then we can have that power supply issue addressed. So it's just to encourage Nigerians to, engage more with stakeholders to ensure that if we are really up for power supply, we should brace up to ensure that, we don't get involved in stealing electricity, because if you do that, it affects the viability and investments.com. But we are also working with, electricity providers to ensure that we can hold them to what they promise to do, and we can also hold ourselves to what we commit to do.
Okay, I hope we can hold them to what they have committed, and we are hoping that they will keep to their words at the end of the day. We'll come back after this short break, and I'll come to Habiba, as I would like to know the issue of policy, because there are many policy inconsistency over the years that has also contributed to some of the issues we have had. I wonder if that was addressed at the summit in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. You tell us more, but let's go on this quick break, and we'll be back shortly.
Is a season of love. In partnership with Yasin, Heartlines will be giving away 4 luxurious, beautiful gifts to 4 lucky women. So stay tuned to the show to find out how you can win these incredible, luxurious gifts. And yes, gentlemen, you can participate to win on behalf of your better half, because truly, love is in the air. So catch me live Mondays through Fridays at 10 p.m. on Heartlines.
Welcome back, and this is the Energy Outlook, and we'll be discussing scaling up energy assets in Nigeria, and some of the conversations from the recently held Africa Energy Summit in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, where 30 African leaders came together to sign a declaration to pull 300 million Africans out of energy poverty. My guest, I've been speaking to Chibueze, Ekeh, who is the CEO of Sea Solar, and Habiba, who is also the CEO of Society Renewable Energy. So I'll just come back now to Habiba quickly as I take this question on policy. Habiba, I always like to emphasize that you've been in this space for a very long time, and you've seen quite a lot of things play out. So the issue of policy now is very important, as policy inconsistency also may have contributed a few times to some of the issues we have had to close the energy access gap. The only regulations or policy we've gotten quite right, which other African countries seem to have applauded Nigeria, is our mini-grid regulations and all of that, which I am aware of. Many players have commended that even outside Nigeria, but policy inconsistency is a big problem. For example, if you are serious about closing the energy access gap, we should have created some sort of incentives for players within the sector, so that we can ease, some of the burdens that we have when we bring in some of these products into the country. And we should have encouraged more of manufacturing in country. I know we have Oxano Solar in the Bejuleke who is producing solar panels in country. We need to encourage more of such manufacturing to happen if we need to really, if we're really serious about, closing this energy access gap in Nigeria. But the issue of policy comes in at this point. Was this discussed at the summit, and to what extent of commitment do we have, especially from these African leaders, and most especially from Nigeria? What did the president say regarding policy, and what assurances did you get from this? And I'm asking you this question because of course, your partnership now, as it involves this recent one you've signed with the IFC, and that will be championed by the REA. So tell me a little bit about policy. Where are we on this?
Yeah, but I think that especially in this sector now, policy has actually started being well implemented. One of the things that played out in Tanzania is the Nigerian Energy Compact. We were one of the countries that had a compact. We had spent some 2 hours discussing, and we got to learn about how the federal government is committed to transforming the energy landscape and accelerating the pace of energy access towards the provision of reliable, affordable, inclusive, sustainable, and clean energy to the Nigerian people. And this, they believe, that will catalyze social, economic, and environmental progress in the country. Of course, they are not just saying this, they are also recognizing that, from what we heard, and yeah, there's been a lot of policy inconsistencies and policy failures, quote unquote, or not aligning to policy, but I believe that there's some sort of balance that has now come up with the mini-grid sector, the renewable energy sector generally, because the government has given its own mind to sanction is based on least cost planning and through competitive procurement. And there's an electricity policy of 2025, which is one of those ones that is the National Integrated Electricity Policy and Strategic Implementation Plan, the NEPSIP, right? And this is in consultation with relevant stakeholders. And we are hoping that by this year, the role of the federal versus states will now be clearly outlined, but you know that NEPSIP already gives states the power to carry out their own energy generation and ensure that they also transmit well. So I believe that just the decentralization of energy will make this policy win this time as against the regular ones that have been happening. And because now the governments are now coming, they are coming to the table and wanting to discuss about, I think the first round table the REA had was with the Katsina state government, and then there was quickly followed by one with Plateau State. These are the ones that I know happened. I'm sure maybe, I don't know, maybe others happened without my knowing it. There was one with Plateau State. There was another one very recently with Kogi State, which I was there. I was there for both the Plateau and the Kogi. And now there's going to be another one next week with Jigawa State. So this is showing you that there's a bit more of vibrance in the energy sector. Yeah. Everybody's taking responsibility. States are beginning to see that, look, this is not, we have to wait for government alone to play. We need to find our own fit and key in and ensure that we make sure our people get access to energy, basically. So I feel that at this point, there's no more time to play with any policy. Everybody's dipping their hands, and the democratic way, that energy is being decentralized now is just, I think this was the answer we were all looking for, because I remember when we did the Renewable Energy Master Plan in 2005, and that was just like a document that was just packed aside. If you remember, between that time and when the energy policy finally made news, it was almost like 10 years, and so much happened that nobody was really regulating. No, there was nothing happening. But look at what the little bit of regulation has done to the mini-grid sector. Look at NERC is regulating us. There's constant checks and balances as to what we're doing.
So Habiba,
not just one.
If I may butt in here now, just to ask you, this, I'm asking you this issue on policy because as you are one of those 5 companies that will be part of this rollout of mini grid projects, as you have signed with the IFC, do you want to tell us more about this agreement you've gone into with the IFC for distributed renewable energy? Tell us more about it. What SOSAI will be achieving with it. And since you sound very confident with the government at this point on their policy.
At this point, exactly. I mean, if you had asked me this question 3 years ago, I would have been one person who would have told you, I don't even want to discuss this government, because honestly, it was not 3 years ago, let's say 8 years ago, more honestly, there seemed to be nothing happening in the energy sector. And I always made this analogy that it was like, when one is sinking and you're finally rising to surface, somebody else just comes and pushes you back in. That's how it has always been in the energy sector, especially the renewable energy sector in Nigeria. But yeah, speaking to policy, I mean, I believe that if we didn't have the good policy that has actually made sure that the distributed access to renewable energy scale up is now being implemented, IFC would not have looked at Nigeria and looked at the DES program and say, oh, this program actually looks like a program that if we put our money in, we're going to get it out. Because like you said earlier, nobody wants to throw money away. Chibueze alluded to that. Every investor, why investors will run away from Nigeria is simply because they put money into the sector and nobody wants to pay for it. Energy theft is the order of the day. We are constantly battling how to make sure people are not stealing energy, how people are buying energy at the right price. You understand? So, but with IFC seeing that theirs is working, they have decided, okay, this makes sense.
This makes sense.
If they give us the funding, they are going to ensure they get their funding back directly from the subsidy that is going to be granted. You know, there's a subsidy. So when you talk about how incentivization, this is incentivization. As a company, go and build out mini grids. You will get at least 40% of your capex as subsidy. I don't know if what else. I mean, it's for me that is a very good thing, because we built mini grids that were not subsidized.
So let me. Sorry.
If you don't mind, let me land.
Okay, go on.
The fact that there's that 40, 50 or 60% of grants that's due. That's why the IFC will come and put money in Nigerian companies. The deal that was signed in Dar es Salaam was $70 million. That means, and this is like $70 million of over $200 million. Right? So there's still more where that came from. And they wouldn't even be looking at Nigeria if there was no incentivization of that subsidy. Because what they are doing now is they are couching their money on the despot subsidy. So once they fund you to build, once you're getting your subsidy, you're paying them back, and you have your plans to run for the rest of its lifetime, where you can make your money and have your return on investments.
Okay, thanks so much, Habiba. I'll just come to Chibueze now. The huge part of all of this, Chibueze, is community engagement. How do you simplify some of this? When you went to build in that community or mini grid, how did you handle community engagement? It seems like a very critical part that we don't bring to the forefront a lot. How do we educate our people? How do we make them understand the need for this? I know a couple of years back when we were championing this whole conversation on adoption of solar, the people switching to solar, I heard quite a lot of things. In your view, as we move into achieving what has been declared at this summit, where is the place of community engagement? From your experience, which you want to learn from, how have you been able to manage this yourself in some of these projects where you go to handle?
Okay, in Africa, we are more community-oriented than, more from an individual perspective, like in other parts of the world. And what that tells us is that, as long as we are willing and able to come together, we can achieve a whole lot more as a community. Now, if we bring that down to communities that are in the rural areas where there is no electricity, what you realize is that before anything, there has to be a community engagement session. The first session where you go to the community, you're talking to the village chief, you're talking to the woman leader, you're talking to the youth leader, you're sort of creating a committee of the community leaders where you are trying to ensure that they understand what you're trying to do, they understand the value, they understand the impact, and most importantly, you get their buy-in. So community engagement is very, very important, and I'm sure Habiba can speak also to this, because without community engagement, you are setting yourself up for failure. And that community engagement doesn't just happen at the beginning, it happens throughout the project implementation period and post-commissioning of a mini grid, because for you to successfully operate and maintain the mini grid, you also need the community's buy-in to ensure that people are paying for the power supply, people are not stealing the power that you're supplying. One thing we have observed as a country is that for us to really achieve Mission 300, we need to, on the one hand, electrify those communities that are not connected to the grid, but on the other hand, also improve the supply for communities that are large in urban areas that are on the grid. The challenge in those areas is that, you can imagine distribution companies inheriting customers who, they maybe probably didn't have much time to engage with. So the community engagement aspect is a very big deal that, most times you need to partner with renewable energy service companies like Sea Solar, like Sosei, to say, come and partner with us, go to this community, go to that community, engage with them, understand their pain points, be able to augment the supply for those communities. And these communities I'm speaking to now are communities that are already connected to the grid. So if the average Nigerian is curious to know how this can affect them, it's as simple as, because you're not getting enough supply through the wires that come to your house, there's an opportunity for renewable energy service companies like us to partner with distribution companies to ensure that we can flow in more electricity through those wires, particularly by leveraging technologies that are renewable, that are clean, like solar, which are distributed energy resources that are quick to deploy and can give you energy supply to augment and add to what you get from the grid. So there's going to be a lot of movement in that area, because for you to get the scale we want to achieve, we're going to look at those who are not connected to the grid, and we're also going to look at those who are connected to the grid but are not getting good supply. So community engagement is one thing that companies like us are, would I say, small enough to reach these communities and engage. And that's a very critical factor for there to be success in ensuring that we meet the target for Mission 300.
All right. Thank you, Chibueze, for that. I'm hopeful, most sincerely, I'm hopeful that what we have, the commitment we have made at this summit will indeed turn to something we'll be all excited for. But before I let you both go, just one more question for you. Maybe I'll start with Chibueze. How far do you think we'll go in the next 5 years following this commitment we have made at this summit? Just in 1 minute.
I would say I am confident that we are going to go far. And the reason is because I have seen what we can do as Nigerians. Nigerians are very, very resilient, very resilient people. You've seen what has happened, for example, in the telecom space. There are people who thought that we will not get so far in 1 year, 5 years, but I think within a few years, most people were having even 2 cell phones, right? There was a time when it was very expensive to buy a SIM card, but today I believe most times SIM cards are almost as free as possible. So I know that in this country, we're going to be able to achieve a lot if we put our mind in it and we support the government.
Same question, Habiba, as we sign off, are you confident in the next 5 years we'll meet up this
I am
target?
very confident. I, for one, only me one, like this one company, we have about 78 sites that we're already looking at, electrifying in the next 5 years. And I know a lot of companies have 90s. I mean, the husks have over 90. I know that Chibueze has his own list of probably another 60 or more or 80, who knows? But, so, and then with the DES program, people are really clamoring, I mean, with the way they've structured the digitalization of it and made sure that they highlight where the communities are. I think it's really, really a good thing, because now we are almost tripping over each other, developers going into communities to get sites that we can actually deploy. So I think that the government's plan to transition to financially viable utilities is going to happen, and we'll be able to. And I think why I actually do like the renewable energy sector is that it is also possible to tie it to the main grid by doing the interconnected mini grid model. And this means, in the past, most communities, there were no meters, nothing, but now we can meter, we can get the money so that investors can then come into the country again. So I believe it's a good thing, and I'm quite confident about it.
All right. Thank you so much, Chibueze, CEO of Sea Solar, and Habiba Ali, CEO of Sincere Renewable Energies Company. Both of you, thank you so much for your time on the program today. We'll continue to follow your work, and as I've done over the years, I'm very particular about your work, and we want to continue to learn more. That's why we have the Energy Outlook, as we continue to look at, where are we making progress, where can we shine the light on, where can we share the spotlight on, where can we also talk about the successes you have done, you have made as you also contribute to closing Nigeria's energy access gap. Thank you so much for your time on the show. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an exciting evening as we have been discussing scaling up energy access in Nigeria. And indeed, there's so much work to be done. And I'm very happy the federal government has made this commitment. We want to see more work going into this. But before I let you go, I want to just give you a final quote that the future of energy is not about scarcity, but about abundance. If we can unlock the power of innovation and collaboration, then indeed we can do more. My name is Wisdom Chap Jumbo. Until we come your way again next week, this is the Energy Outlook. Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word. Energy security is one of the most pressing issues for many developing countries like Nigeria. And if there's going to be any meaningful progress, addressing our energy issues is non-negotiable.
I need to see light for my house. Make them do something.
Band A is expensive. I literally have to turn off all my appliances just to reduce costs.
We need light.
Introducing the Energy Outlook, your go-to show for everything energy. Every week, we'll bring you the latest insights, innovation, and in-depth analysis of Nigeria's energy sector. From policy discussions to regulatory insights, we will analyze the key decisions influencing growth and sustainability in the energy sector. We'll bring you the human stories behind the headlines, giving you a personal perspective on the broader energy challenges. Join me every Friday at 6 p.m. for the Energy Outlook, your guide to the future of energy, where energy means business.